Mike Hambright, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm glad to have you here. This is we've been playing a little bit of cat and mouse to get you in the studio.
Yeah, well, hey, it's winter wonderland.
It is, and I believe the first attempt I hit you up and was like, "Hey, can't make it."
Yeah, no big deal.
So we're busy entrepreneurs, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, so I greatly appreciate you coming here today. You got a hell of a track record, sir. You know.
Well, I've been around for a little while.
Yeah, you're doing some things, Mastermind, real estate training, the whole 9 yards. Tell me, where did this start and how'd you get to where you are now?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, I kind of refer to myself as a corporate refugee. So my wife and I were both in corporate America. And the long version of the story, I kind of talk about how I was the first person to go to college in my family and things like that, and thought that somehow it wasn't really from my parents, although my parents are great, telling me that I needed more formal education to get where I wanted to go. And the short version of that is that wasn't true, right? So after getting fired from a job that I loved, that was an amazing opportunity, like, you know, working for the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, flying around in private jets, doing really cool shit.
Yeah.
He got fired, and then I got fired because I was his outspoken right-hand man.
Yeah, got it.
And it's like, you know, that was my first feeling of like corporate politics and the bullshit that comes with that. No matter how good you are, how hard you worked, like, other people can make decisions for you. And then went there to another company that was, I say a startup. At that point, it's about a half $500 million a year startup, if you will. Yeah. And riding the wave, and we're doing amazing things. And then they filed for bankruptcy like 18 months after I went there. And my son had just been born. He was two months old, and my wife had quit her job for me to go take this job. And it was just this realization of I don't have control over where I go from here, no matter how hard I work, right? No matter how smart I am, no matter anything. And so that was my first foray into I need to do something different, which ultimately became real estate, but I didn't exactly know that at the time.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I my last company before I came here was in GPS tracking, and one of the realizations that I had was like, oh shit, this is great. We make decent money over here. I employ myself, my business partner. We got a team of people. The problem was, A, it wasn't a recurring revenue model, so we had to go earn every dollar every time. And number two, we were subcontractors for some big vendors. So we were basically at their beck and call. If they had a shitty month in sales, well, guess what? The installs dried up real fast if they didn't sell the product. Yep. So I was like, okay, cool. This was great for the 11 years that I was involved, but I will never do that again.
Right.
You know, if I were to do it again and start over, I think I just mentioned this either in a Facebook post or maybe in something I'm writing recently. I'm doing a lot of writing. But it's like, if I have to do it again, the only business that I will get involved in is something that's going to pay me recurring revenue.
Yeah. Or something you can scale. I mean, that's a problem with a lot of small businesses. It's not something that you can scale, right? Yeah. It's like, it's only going to become a job. And it could be a high paid job, but the truth is, you know, while a lot, and that's why I see in real estate, a lot of folks end up getting a high paid job. And that's really what I try to help with. But a lot of folks have a job where they're making more money than they've ever made before, but, you know, they get sick or they want to go on vacation or, you know, kids have something going on, whatever, like the business stops if you're not there. And so, but that's not just real estate. That's obviously impacts a lot of people, right?
Sure it does. Yeah. So what's your thought process, what's your coaching method into getting people's mindsets wrapped around like, hey, if you're going to continue doing this, you're just going to build this job. But the minute you stop actually going in and pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, you're cutting off that cash, that stream.
Right. Yeah. For a lot of small businesses, I mean, they get to a point to where they're making a lot of money, and part of it is they're not paying themselves, if you will, right? They're getting paid whatever's left, and whatever's left is more than they've ever made before. Yeah. But if you had to pop in a COO or you know, an executive level, and that compensation was out of there, they would see that they're not making as much as they thought. They're just getting paid to sit in multiple seats, right? Yeah. And so that's the key is, you know, a lot of my time is focused on lead generation and building up businesses, because you need that to scale. If you don't have a business that you can scale up, or you refuse to make that investment, then you're going to be stuck in a seat.
Yep, refuse to make the investment. One of the favorite things that I like doing with clients when it comes to coaching is helping them design and lay out that organizational chart where they are now. And then basically saying, hey, and I'm a firm believer of, hey, this doesn't have to be perfect. We don't need to put this on software yet. Go get a packet of sticky notes, right, Post-its, and start posting them on one of your walls in your house, your home office. I don't care where it is, right? That way you can pull those Post-its and you can move them around and get this thing laid out the way it is.
Yeah.
But the key thing here is to put down your initials on every one of those hats that you're currently wearing in the company. And then you got to ask yourself, are you paying yourself
exactly
for each of those positions? Because right now, you know, you're the CEO or the founder of the company. You're paying yourself that wage. Oh, you're also HR. You're paying yourself that wage. Right. Oh, you're the technician in the company too, with something in fulfillment or a sales role. Are you paying yourself that wage too? And most times people are just like, oh no, not at all.
Not at all. Right.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I'm all for hustle for sure, but I think that can't be the goal, right? That's like a season people have to go through. And whenever you need to dive back in, you got to do what you got to do if it's your business for sure.
Do
but
what's
that
required.
Can't be like, I'll work this hard forever because, you know, we're all a bunch of young guys here. A lot of people that I'm around are young guys. A lot of people there in Apex are relatively young, right? And then you start getting up there in age and you're like, this doesn't work anymore. Like, I can't do this. Physically, you might not be able to do it. Mentally, you get tired at some point, right?
100%. I looked in my last line of work, I looked at a lot of guys, and I come from a very technical background. I mean, like working hands-on kind of deal. Looked at a lot of guys, and I was like, man, that guy's 10 years older than me, or that guy's, 5 years older than me, 15 years older than me. And I said, holy shit, that guy looks like he's been run over by a bus. Yeah. And it's because he's been on that grind his entire life, and he's been working with his hands in the field and in the elements for 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
I didn't want that to be me when I got to that point.
Right. Every year's like 2 or 3 years. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's like, how do I make this pivot? How do I make this change now before it's too late?
Yep.
And for me, it was like, I've said the story, I told the story here multiple times, but it's life-altering events are what give you that trigger. For me, the first life-altering event I had was my wife came to me and said, hey, I'm pregnant with number one. So I was like, oh shit. And at that point in time, it was like, I decided to become an adult. It wasn't an option at that point. I was like, okay, cool. I have this opportunity, I have this business. I know, or I'm smart enough to realize that this business is bigger than what it currently is, and I just don't know how to get it there. Mm-hmm. So what do I do? Or what would you do in that point?
You just have to look and see what you're strong and what you're weak at. I think a lot of entrepreneurs try to, it's almost like ego gets in the way of like, I have to be good at everything. And it's like, why would you have to, what else have you been good at everything at in your whole life? Like, why do you have to be good at everything, right? Go back to sports. Like, you play a role there. Maybe you should be the sales guy. Maybe you're organized and more of an implementer or integrator. You should be like more of an operations person, right? So it's really identifying what your weaknesses are and kind of surrounding yourself around that. Now, with all that said, I have a couple businesses where I have big teams now, but it's hard. It's hard to find good people. It's hard to let go because of where I came from and where we came from. It was having to be scrappy, having to hustle,
Yeah, that's it's a mindset that was ingrained in us as kids, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up a wealthy dude by no means. Yeah, I didn't grow up, like low class either. We were dead smack in the middle. Yeah. And we were taught to save. We were taught to, you do everything yourself because you have to save that money. Like, why would you hire a plumber? Just go figure it out and fix it yourself.
Exactly.
It took years of getting myself out of that mentality to get to the point that I'm at now.
Yeah. And I still struggle with it personally. I mean, even though I have the means to pay for anything I would want to have fixed in my house, but sometimes I'm like, I'll just do it. Months go by, and my wife's like, what the hell,
Yep.
It's like, well, it seems wasteful to have somebody else do it. In the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't have the right tools for that.
Right, that guy could have been here and done already.
No doubt.
Yeah. That happened with me a couple months ago. So, I come from New York, another cold weather guy like yourself, because you come from Chicago, right? I come from New York a year and a half ago, and I move into this house, and it's literally 3 times the size of my house in New York. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, holy shit, the windows are dirty. I should probably clean the windows. And first choice was, all right, hop in my truck. I'm going to head over to Home Depot or Lowe's because I don't have a ladder big enough to get up there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to think of like cleaning supplies, scrub pads, this thing, that thing. And I said, whoa, hold on a second here. If one of my clients came to me with this situation, what would I advise them to do? And I immediately changed. I was like, nope, ain't happening. Went on the old Googles, found somebody. It's funny, the guy that I found and I wound up using is an Apex. I didn't know it at the time.
Oh, that's funny.
Which is cool. So I like keeping the work in the family, if you get my drift there. So anyway, he shows up with his crew and like 2 dudes, actually 3 dudes. And it's funny, they were just in my house a couple days ago. 3 dudes are there, like 2 fucking hours cleaning my windows. Like, I didn't realize it would be that much work. And here's what would happen. I would have climbed up that ladder and I would have cleaned the windows, and halfway through the project, I would have said, holy shit, this is ridiculous. Now, since I started, I'm going to finish, but I will never do this again. So all the ladder and all the cleaning supplies that I just bought, probably spent $600 on, is now going to sit in the corner of the garage for the next 10 years.
Right.
Like, yeah, I dodged a bullet there.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I had my neighbor too. Last winter, we had Snowmageddon, or whatever the hell you want to call it, snowpocalypse. And the dude wound up losing his bathroom on his main floor. Pipe burst. He was away for the week, whatnot, with the family. Comes home, loses the bathroom. Insurance is taking forever. Tries finding some local contractors. And they're all booked out for months.
Yeah.
So he says, fuck it, I'm just going to do it myself. The guy gets in there, starts doing the work, gets halfway through the project, climbs up on a ladder, falls off, and breaks his arm, compound fracture. So now he's got no bathroom that's done. His arm is busted. And like, dude, like, I couldn't imagine being in that situation. Here's this poor guy just suffering, and he just got dealt a shitty card.
Right.
It's wild, man. It's wild. What's next for you?
Well, you know, what I've come to realize is kind of when I started as a real estate investor, we flipped hundreds of houses here in the Dallas area, and I realized along the way that there was something missing. Like when I left corporate America, it was, there was something missing. Like it was my wife and I in a hole-in-the-wall office down in Farmers Branch, a little bit south of here. And we didn't have peers. Like back then, and I'm going to like date myself. This is like 2008, okay? So I'm sound like an old man, but I used to be like the young guy in the room, and now I'm like the Yoda in the room. Right? Got a little less hair on my ears, but we just missed the corporate environment. It's always somebody's birthday or happy hours, like all those things, right? It was like now we're just like head down working. And while we had a couple people in our office, they weren't really our peers. Maybe like an admin or somebody. We're not like hanging out with them like business owners and talking about stuff, right? And so what I really jumped into kind of begrudgingly at the time, I had more of a scarcity mindset of like sharing what I know with other people. And some of it's like, I worked hard to get where I was. Somebody's going to take what I have, like all that stuff. It was really mindset stuff in hindsight, right? But then when I started sharing what I know with people, I got it fed my heart, right? I got a lot of joy out of that.
Yep.
And then I got a lot of business out of it. Like things started clicking. It's like, wow, people are bringing me deals. We're partnering on deals. Or asking me if I want to borrow money. Like this whole world opened up that I never had imagined. And truthfully, I think some of it is just coming from the corporate world. And the couple of the companies that I worked at, maybe they're not all like this. We're just like dog eat dog, right? It's like people are always jockeying to get to the next level. And so there was never really a reason to like have internal mentors and coaches and stuff inside of the business that I was familiar with. But when I started, showing people what I do, then people started asking me like, well, can you coach me? Can I hire you? That really started the coaching stuff, right? And I did coaching for a long time. And I still do it on some level. We all do it on some level, right?
Sure.
But after a long, long time of doing that, I started to realize that I get a lot more joy out of the people that had more experience. When you're brand new in real estate investing or any business, like it's more mindset, right? It's like, can I do this? Should I leave my job to do it? Like all those mental hurdles, like does this really work, right? And then once you get to a point where I know it works, I just don't know how to get from 3 deals a month to 6 deals a month or 5 deals a year to 20 deals a year. It's like, okay, I don't have to deal with the emotional baggage of like, this is how yes, it does really work. You know it works at that point you're in. You just need the mechanics of how to get forward. So that's kind of how my mastermind started, Investor Fuel. And so I really enjoy, pouring into people and truthfully putting them together. Like I've always been a connector of
people. Connector.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be, I kind of tell this, I just actually gave a presentation at my last event about how like the kind of the history of my hustle, if you will. And it started with like lemonade stands stuff way back then, but kind of the pulling people together was like the fake ID in high school, selling cups to have parties. The truth is I wanted to have parties to pull people together because it made me feel good. It wasn't, I'm sure I never made a profit on that, even though I was selling cups because you give half your buddies a free one anyway. Sure. So, but I think just putting people together and not just real estate investors, all small business, it's a lonely space, right? If you're an entrepreneur, it's often lonely because you're not talking to your neighbors necessarily about
they don't get it.
You just crushed it or you just lost a bunch of money. They just don't get it, right? And you just have to relate to them on a different level. But when you're an entrepreneur, you don't know how to not talk about business for more than like a couple minutes. Right? You're going through some sort of withdrawal, like, hey, I need to tell you about this thing that just happened. But if the right people aren't there, you can't share those stories. So I've done that for years, and I really enjoy that. So just continue to focus on, helping kind of pour into other people and pull people together, that we've created something really special. Truthfully, that's why I joined Apex. Like, I've known of Ryan for years, had him on my podcast actually years ago, went to a couple events, and somebody has said this to me before, and I didn't really think about it until they said it, but that's ultimately the reason why I joined Apex was they're like, you pour into all of us. Who pours into you?
Yep.
And I'm like, that's a good question. And I have friends there. Like, I love the relationships, but I don't ever share my problems because I'm the leader.
Correct.
And, I don't want to look weak, or I don't want to be vulnerable in front of those folks or whatever. I mean, I have a lot of great friends there, but it's just a different dynamic, right?
100%. It's funny you mentioned that. So going back to the life-altering event, one of the things I wound up doing in that situation is like, oh, shit, I don't know what I'm doing here. Let me go find somebody who does. And I went out and I searched and found my first business coach. Led me to my second business coach, and I'm in his office, and we used to meet once a week for 3 weeks out of the month. Spent a lot of hours in that guy's office, digging in deep, mindset stuff, systems, processes, automation. We did a lot of heavy lifting in that office. And one of the things the guy said to me was, if you ever start working with somebody else other than me, one of the requirements that I want you to ingrain in your head forever is make sure that your coach has a coach. And if he doesn't have a coach, run. It's like, oh, shit, okay, cool. And I got it at that very moment. And it's funny, just like you, so the Goon Squad, right? Mike Claudio, Chris Whitehead, all those knuckleheads. We go to Cabo a couple weeks ago, and we're in this infinity pool looking over the edge, Pacific Ocean's, right there in front of us. And I'm in the corner, and it was me and Mike, and we're just, in the pool, arms up over the ledge, hanging out, drinking a beer. He's smoking a cigar, and he's like, so I got to ask you a question. It's like, hey, man, what's up? He goes, what's next for you when it comes to personal development and coaching? So that's a good question, because the situation that I'm in is like, I came into Apex as a client, came in Apex 1, did the work, we got invited to the table to work one-to-one with Ryan for nearly 2 years. I did that. Now I get the joy of coming in here and seeing a guy probably 2 or 3 days a week. And if I need a question answered, I've got something, whether it's personal or business or company related, the dude's a text message or a phone call away. The difference is I don't pay him anymore. He pays me. But it's almost as if he's no longer a mentor or a coach to me, even though he filled that role for so long.
Sure, yeah.
I need to go find something else to help fill that area. So that's on my agenda, and it's actually a pretty big initiative for me in the year of 2022 is to go find that. I wouldn't call it a next group, because I'm not looking to like go into another group and leave this behind. I don't want people to take it that way, but I need to get influence. I need to get something from other people outside of this network. Can't just be this group in and of itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I joined Apex for too, is to get a different dynamic, right? I know how my events run. I know how we run things, and just to kind of get a different experience, right? And there's I'm in some other masterminds and groups too, but they tend to be kind of in my industry. Yeah. And so each of those I go to, I get a different perspective on things. There's some things help me grow as a human, help me grow as a business person, and some things I can bring back into my group and say, hey, this worked really well. I really like how they did that. Let me kind of introduce this as well.
Yeah, I love that. It's one of the reasons that I've done so much in the coaching and personal development space for myself, because I'll go to certain, I'm sure you're the same way, I'll go to certain events, certain, meetings, whatever you want to call them, masterminds. I don't take away everything that's presented there. I take away the stuff that resonates with me, that impacts me. And what I wind up doing is, over time, you start taking this back, take this from this one. And when you get back home, it's like, okay, cool. Now let me organize this shit to work good for me.
Right.
And you have it's like the Frankenstein method.
Yeah. It's evolution though, right?
Yeah, it is.
That's how you learn take little bits and pieces from here and there. And
Yep.
It's like, funnel hacking. Like I build a lot of stuff. Like, I like what this guy did here. I like these colors. I like this design. Let me kind of make this my own. And, I tell people all the time, or I tell my team, like, I'm not the best at coming up with new ideas, like for marketing sometimes, but I like when I see something I like, we make it our own. We're not copying anybody, but I need that inspiration sometimes. Just like if you're doing a backyard, you're going to go buy a book on like landscaping or patios to just say, wow, I never even thought of that. That looks cool. Let's do that. Let's do that. Take this from here. Right. That's how life is too.
Yeah, for sure. It also has a lot to do with hiring experts. I went to a conference a couple of years ago, guys presenting from stage. And speaking of backyards, he throws up a picture of this backyard. He goes, "See this backyard? It was gorgeous." He's like, "I built this, 2 years ago. This is my last house, and my wife and I wound up selling it." Okay. He flips to the next slide, and it is this like fucking mecca of a backyard. It's like the most amazing, brilliant thing you've ever seen in your life. And he goes, "You see this backyard?" Like, yeah. He goes, "I hired a pro and they designed this one. Isn't it a little bit better?" And it was a sales pitch. And he's like, "Well, if you're ready to take action on this, hire the pro and wear your pros," kind of thing. But the guy had a valid point.
Sure.
It's like you need that the person who's just got the experience and who just knows things really well. And in my opinion, you got to hire and look for that person on occasion. Sometimes it's a contractor. Sometimes it's someone to bring into your company.
Yeah. Well, with like HGTV. I'll even go so far to say Amazon Prime, all these things, like we want results and we want them now, right? We've gotten to this point to where we're not willing to wait for anything. I don't need to learn anything. I can just watch it on YouTube and know all I need to know. You really don't know shit when you watch a YouTube video, right? True. And the problem is it's like I used to use the analogy of like going to YouTube is like my son who's 14 now, he used to play with Legos, right? Mm-hmm. So we would get these kits, you know what I'm talking about, the kits. Yeah. And he would put them together. He was amazing. He was always like, he's like 8 and he's putting together ones that are for like 16 plus. Like he's just great at it. But eventually those things all end up in a big ass bucket. Yep. You could never put that thing back together without the instructions or, being a Lego like employee or whatever. Yeah. Right. And so that's what YouTube is. And there's got like great stuff on YouTube. Don't get me wrong. Yep. It's the first place I go when I'm looking, at least high level, how do I do something? But to actually do it, if it's complicated, it's like without those books and without the pieces being in a bag that says part 1, part 2, part 3, that's a recipe. What I'm looking for, what we often have is just a bunch of ingredients, and we're like, well, let's just throw some shit together, cheat. Make it happen. Right?
Yeah. I look at it that way. It's funny, man. I was having a call with a client recently, and I was like, he was getting involved in a new software for his company. I was like, go on YouTube and go do your research. I said, this is one of the hacks that I've actually leveraged myself to get good at a lot of the softwares that we use to implement systems and processes. Yeah. I went on YouTube, and instead of watching TV, I'm really not a TV watcher. But I'll go home, I'll sit in my theater room, I'll fire up YouTube on the Fire Stick or Apple TV, and I'll go and I'll search, and I'll actually watch 5, 10, 15 videos on the subject matter that I'm trying to learn more of. And oftentimes you'll wind up finding that the same person kicked out a series of videos, and they're like lead magnets for that person is what it is. Right. And then you find out, this person actually has a paid course on this where they really dive in and tell you the real goodies. I've spent so much money on that kind of crap because you go in there, you learn a little bit from YouTube, right? It's that lead magnet, that hook, and you go do some social recon and you go Google the person. Oh, they own this company and they're looking to sell this. Cool. And you spend $1,000 on the course, but in that course is where they've got that gated material, which a lot of times is so much better, where it's actually the deep dive where they're showing you exactly what to do. Yeah.
And it puts the pieces in order.
Right? It does. It puts the pieces in order. Hey, start here, or go to my YouTube channel and figure out the 1,500 plus videos I've got there.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of videos, you got a couple, huh?
Yeah, I started a podcast, I guess a little bit over, so around Christmas time, it was 8 years ago. So a little bit over 8 years.
You got in the game early.
Yeah, it was in my space, in the real estate investing industry, there were like 5 or 6 guys, most of them are all friends of mine now, or acquaintances for sure, that were out there without really knowing what it is. When I go back to, I was talking about coaching. When I started coaching, I was doing that here locally. Yeah. And I was rehabbing so many houses that I would just we'd go meet at a rehab. And I did this thing called Rehab Live. Mm-hmm. And this would be great for anybody that's out here that, thinks you can network your way to amazing things. There's a lot of people in Apex that do that, right? Focus on referrals and stuff. Is we would just go to a house, which is something I'm already doing anyway. Mm-hmm. And we would meet there 3 times, right when we bought it. And we bought ugly houses, these are Hoyer houses and stuff like that. Yeah. I'd always try to pick the worst ones because the transformation will look the grandest, to go from where it was to where. And we'd meet there 3 times right at the beginning before we've done anything. We have people sign on waivers, don't wear open-toed shoes and stuff. I mean, some of these houses are gross, right? And halfway through, and it's amazing what a couple days and a couple guys and a couple dumpsters will do for these things, but halfway through and then meet again at the end, which is usually 4 or 5 weeks later, and they're immaculate, look like a brand new house. And
That's quick.
It was just a
turnaround.
way to kind of meet people, and like at the end, we would sit around and just talk about how did you do this, why did you do that, what did you spend on this. We would just kind of lay it all out. It was like a case study, you know.
Right.
And it's experiential too, so people really loved it. And then I was like, how do I do this like in a bigger way? And then I hired a camera guy, and he's kind of following me around to houses. But I'm like, I'm not interacting with anybody. I'm just recording stuff and putting it online. And very quickly, I went to an interview style podcast, which is what I do now, because I've done some podcasts on my own before. I'm tired of myself talking after like 2 minutes. I'm like, I'm done. There's no interaction, there's no banter, there's no pivoting. It's just like I just said something
tough.
And I'm done.
Listen, I've done several solo podcasts, and I mean, I got nothing to say, folks. Like if you put someone in front of me and we can have a conversation, cool. We can go for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, as long as you're not a dipshit and we have a decent conversation. But you put me solo, and it's like, man, I'm struggling to get 15 minutes.
Right. It's tough.
Yeah. It's
tough.
different, though. You put me on a stage, I can go for an hour easily. Yeah. But for that podcast or even recording videos, if you want to record a video straight through for an hour, like, that's where Stuman comes in, where he's clutch, and that guy just has it.
Just carry it on,
He can just talk, man. Holy shit. I don't know.
But over the years, it's evolved to like a couple different podcasts, and now I have my Investor Fuel Mastermind. And so, a couple of years ago, I was like, I just want to talk to my friends like that are in my mastermind. So I primarily just interview my mastermind members now, but I'm going to bring my original podcast back. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's just been neglected,
Got it.
But yeah, it's an opportunity. I think in this world, we're all connected to thousands of people. We have thousands of friends on social media, right? But it's not the same as just sitting down and talking to somebody, getting to know them better.
Nope, definitely not. It's one of the things that I've done since I'm here is, and listen, I have a luxury too, because of Break Free Academy, because of Apex, especially Apex executives and even our entrepreneur level people, because there's some high level people in there too. I'm very fortunate because those people fly in too, or like yourself, live local, and I can pull from a group of pretty much elite entrepreneurs. But I was a Zoom guy for the longest time. If you go back, probably 30, 40 episodes ago, you can probably find some Zoom episodes of this podcast. But the Zoom was always missing something, right? There was always a lag in Zoom, and someone would try and interrupt or speak over somebody, drive me fucking crazy. You always had to worry about quality. You had to kick out the emails and reminders. Hey, sir, like I know you've done podcasts and stuff before, but do me a favor and please show up with a decent microphone, right? Or if you don't have a microphone, put in your iPhone headset and make the thing work. I got tired of that. I got tired. I hopped on a Zoom call with a guy to record a podcast, and he's like, "Hey, I'm at home and my internet here sucks, so we might be a little glitchy. Like I can't record with you, buddy.
Yeah,
sorry. Like no hard feelings, but I can't record with you if we've got crappy internet.
Yeah.
So
for a while I did a live show, and I'm thinking about going back to it, but that causes what you just said is the worst part. It's like you go live and somebody's audio or video doesn't work, and or then you got to like test it ahead of time, and nobody has to. Like I like more of a style like this. Like let's just sit down and talk and not have to think through all the technology, But
now this is cool. I really enjoy doing them like this. It's face to face, so there's just something about seeing, meeting, interacting with another human face to face.
Right.
But yeah, these are recorded. I'll give you, for instance, I'm at this table maybe 2 weeks ago, and let me look. Okay, it's not there. I reached my foot back, and I went to swing it forward, and a garbage can was here. I kicked this garbage can like Steve Weatherford kicking a punt, and the thing just went bouncing around all over here. And it was simple. We stopped, we paused. It was edited out, and nobody knew, right? You're not doing that in a live show.
That's for sure.
Yeah. How many people in the mastermind right now?
We have about 150.
It's a good amount.
Yeah, and a couple meetings back, we branched out into, and we have we have a couple of groups similar to Apex. We have a mid-level group, which we call our gold group, and Real Creative, gold and platinum. And then we have what we call the cash flow group, which is multifamily, which is mostly what I do personally. Now I've flipped hundreds of houses, but mostly I invest in large multifamily deals now. And I have a good friend that's my business partner in a bunch of deals, and he facilitates that group kind of simultaneously with the other groups going on. So
got it. Yeah. Who's the ideal person to come into your mastermind?
It's really, so right now we don't really work with newbies. I've done a lot of stuff with newbies, but it's more experienced people that are actively. So for example, our gold group is people that are doing, mostly single family investors doing 10 to 50 deals a year.
Okay.
And for our platinum group, it's 50 up to, we have guys doing 500 or 600 deals a year.
So is that flips or is that purchases or both?
So it could be, assignments or wholesales or fix and flips for the most part is what most people are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. It's a lot of people to have. It really is.
Yeah, we've been doing it for 4.5 years. It's a great group. I mean, it's really, we're really white glove it. Like we really built a family out of this too, of people that we built an amazing culture that people want to be a part of. So
yeah. So tell me about the cadence or the frequency of the in-person events. Does everyone get in-person events, or is it just certain levels?
Yeah, we have 4 in-person events a year, and then like I said, we have a gold and a platinum group. So they overlap by like a day. So the first group comes in on Monday, second group comes in on Tuesday afternoon, and we overlap a little bit there. And the first group ends on Wednesday at noon. The second group ends today on Thursday. But it's evolved. When COVID hit. In the event business, we were like, oh crap, like what are we gonna do? And the truth is a lot of these folks are my friends. A lot of these people needed support. They needed to be around people like them. And truthfully, that year was one of the better years, unless it was last year, 2021, for real estate investors ever. And now most people are doing less volume, but the profits are just way higher because it's just a weird time in real estate right now. No inventory. But it evolved to like all of a sudden we're like doing a couple of online happy hours a week, and we're like real frequent online stuff because we didn't know what the future of in-person events would be. We only missed one event in hindsight. Now the first event back we missed, like, so COVID hit, I guess. Who knows when it was launched, but effectively February or March, right? And we had just had an event. In hindsight, there's people like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I had COVID at that event. I was sick as a dog. I didn't know what it was in February. And then May, we just went to an online event. And then by the time April rolled around, we did it again. Like 50% of our members were back, and we're all back now. But but we kind of changed, from a business standpoint, we're trying to retain people and also trying to provide for them and make sure that they can stay in. So it's evolved to doing even more events now where we do a lot of travel trips. We go to, I took like 30 people to Cabo last fall. We're doing it again this year. That'll be a staple because my wife and I go there. It's so easy to get to Cabo from Dallas.
It really is.
Yeah. And
really is.
So we do a couple, in a couple weeks, we're going to Vegas, and we're blowing shit up in the desert with sniper rifles and dune buggies and something that's called...
Say less, I'll be there.
Something that's called speedboats and champagne. I don't know if those things should technically go together, but it is Vegas. So, but we do stuff like that. I just started to wrap it in. My wife and I love to travel. Yeah. And it's just evolved to hey, we're going to Cabo for our anniversary, so let's go 3 days ahead of time, and then let's invite a bunch of people out to join us, and just kind of tying it into things that we're already doing and give me a reason to extend my trip. Sure. Right?
Yeah, it's funny. We do such similar stuff here. Yeah. Same thing with COVID with us. Going back to COVID, it was February we actually hit Cabo of 2020, and I wasn't a team member, but I was a coach here already at that point. And I got invited to go on that trip. It was awesome. I definitely came home with COVID, by the way. I don't care what the doctor says. That shit was COVID. And by, I think it was March, everything was shut down. March, April, I think May-ish, we started coming back in person for Flying Fridays here. Yeah. But the group was much smaller. We had 20, 25 people and Apex executives at that point in time. But same deal with events and offsite stuff. We've been doing a lot more of that. The Cabo trip has become a staple. We do it a minimum twice a year at this point. Yeah. So March is coming up. We got Cabo then. We're doing September. And we just added a third one, believe it or not, which is more of a couples retreat that Ryan and Amy are doing, which is going to be in December.
I'm going to have to make it to one of these.
Yeah, it's a hell of an experience.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've been there before. You've been on the jet before. You get the understanding.
Yeah, but it's, I love to travel with people because we sit around and talk business the whole time anyway, but it's just a different, you probably don't have your cell phone in your hand the whole time, and it's just a different experience to just get away. And
it's a very different experience, and it's funny looking back at our Cabo trips and the people who were there and what has happened and transpired with a lot of the people who were there together. I'm talking business partnerships, investment opportunities, just because they spent a couple grand with each other and met in Cabo.
Right.
It's like, oh shit, I didn't think any of this was going to come out of it, but it's pretty wild to see what's actually happened.
Yeah, so my largest business now is a lead generation, kind of a done for you lead generation, kind of a white glove approach. We do something very unique for real estate investors. And my business partner, I met when he joined Investor Fuel. The first day he was there, we were talking, and it's a long story. We had never really met before, but I knew of him. And we met, and he started sharing, something, and I kind of knew a path that I was going down.
Yeah,
it's like I knew a couple pieces that I was missing. He had some pieces that he was missing, and I tell people it was like peanut butter and jelly coming together. And truthfully, we've created something really amazing over the last few years, and no limit to the upside from here.
Yep.
And that started from meeting somebody at a mastermind, and even I told you my business partner that I do all the multifamily with met at a mastermind, and became fast friends, and the rest is history,
And you heard it there, folks. You want to meet like-minded individuals, join a damn mastermind. You're going to meet them there. That's for sure. Listen, bottom line is this. I don't care who you are. Everyone's got good intentions for the most part. Not everything works out. I mean, there's got to be situations and instances where you've either met somebody, tried something, partnered up with them, and it goes to shit. You got any experiences like that you want to share?
Oh, man, I've made a ton of failures, but those are stepping stones, right? To success. The truth is you can't get to a point to where you win unless you failed. Like you have to, and if you do, it's probably short lasted, right? Like because you didn't overcome anything to get there. And when you start to overcome those obstacles and you pivot and you stick with it, most people just quit, right? Yeah. But you stuck with it, you made it happen, you fail again, you learn, you grow. That's how it works.
Yeah, for sure. What's the end goal for you? Like what's the fuck? I actually made it. Like what does that look like for you in your eyes?
I have no idea. Like I like what I do. I think part of it is just getting to a point to where you love what you do every day.
Yeah.
Right. There's always shit that we have to deal with that we don't want to have to do. But for the most part, I love what I do, and I don't see an end in sight. So I might be older than some of the folks in the room. I'm 47, by the way. A bunch of my friends
You're
give
not
me
that
shit.
old.
But I like what I do, and I'm the type of guy that's like probably working on Christmas Day because I'm a little bit bored by the afternoon. I can start fidgeting with stuff. And so, let alone a 3-day weekend, right? So like retire, I don't know what that is. I think the point is, there's like, without getting into too many details here, there's like the Robert Kiyosaki cash flow quadrant, right?
Yeah, I understand it.
The I box is like, I'm an investor. My money makes money, whether I work or not. And so that allows me to kind of go in and consult and do a deep dive and work with friends or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But be able to pull yourself out and not necessarily have to be, scrubbing toilets or whatever else you might have to do. It's like I do what I want to do as much as I can, and my money makes money while I sleep. And then that's where I want to get to. I have some businesses that are there. Most of them I'm still probably more involved than I'd like to be.
Sure.
But I think it's just a point where, like my family was very blue collar. Growing up retiring was like, I put my 30 years in, I quit, I got the pin, and now I'm just going to sit down and do nothing or do whatever I want. But I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I'm with you there 100%. That's just not in my nature. Yeah. And like you, come Christmas or New Year's Eve or day, I mean, a couple hours into doing nothing, I'm like, all right, I got to go do something.
Yeah.
My wife understands that too, thank God. But I think the ultimate goal for me, and I pull a lot of this from Sean Whalen, is like, I kind of know what I want, right? But I think the ultimate goal, like I'll know when I get there, and it's not a dollar amount, it's having the ability to have ultimate freedom. Literally being able to pick up at any point in time in the week and just being like, fuck it, we're just going to go to right now. We're going to go do this. Hey, wife, grab the kids, get the dog in the car, we're going here. And being able to basically tell the calendar to go fuck off. Yeah. That right there to me is the ultimate win. And it's just true freedom in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I like that. The challenge for me is like I fill the calendar up with stuff, right? Like it's almost like sometimes if I need something to do, I'll break something just so I have to fix it. and that's the challenge is like stop, I tell people that I've become more introverted over time. I don't know if that's true or not. Most people think that I'm an extrovert, but most people think that a lot of introverts that do podcasts and talk and on stage, stuff like that, are extroverts. But, the truth is I say it's two things. One is my wife has taught me to think before I speak more than she used to. And also every time I open my mouth, I get a bunch of tasks. So how do I just like think before I speak? Because that might end up being a job for me.
Yeah, I get it. Let's talk about the introvert. You think you are?
I mean, I'm probably a low extrovert at this point. Okay. I have some, I used to, I don't know what it is. I think some of it's business wisdom, maybe. Some of it's just like being a little bit older, like thinking before I speak on things instead of just, I do have opinions on everything still, but I probably keep some of them back a little more than I used to. So I don't know that I'm an introvert, but I'm less extroverted than I used to be, I think.
Yeah. I think I'm definitely more introverted than extroverted. It's funny. I got to pull up some of my personality assessments and see what the latest scores tell me. But I'm the kind of person where, like, right now, I can be extroverted and have a conversation with you. You walk up to me at an event, I can, be that outgoing person. But man, a couple hours later, like, I am wiped, and I have to go home and recharge. And recharging for me is not being around anybody. Like, give me 3, 4, 5 hours or a full day of no interaction with another human.
Yeah.
But after that, I start to crave the interactions a bit as well if I get too much alone time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's natural these days. Like, there's so much, we were talking about this a little bit ago, like, we're connected to thousands of people on social media, but the relationships are so shallow, like how do you build lasting relationships with people? It's by doing stuff like this, traveling together, joining masterminds and being around people. And, we all need people. It's just to what level that we need to be around that, I guess.
Yes, sir.
What dose do you need?
It's the hardest lesson you learned in business. What is it?
Well, what is the hardest? That was a question, sorry. Hardest lesson I've learned in business. Hardest. I would say, I don't know if this is the hardest. I would say this is something that took me a while, is just to focus on serving others first, and which kind of led into the mastermind, right, and the coaching stuff. Because for some reason that wasn't natural to me. But I think it's just the value of adding value to folks as much as you can, and you'll get that back. So it was hard at the time, like when I made that transition, being like a solopreneur, just focused on feeding my family and making sure that we could. There was a point we were never like living under a bridge, right? But we were burning through savings, like the clock was ticking, right?
Yeah.
And then once we got past that, and a little while down the road, I realized that the game really is to serve other people. So not necessarily the hardest thing I've ever learned, I guess, but
definitely
it was definitely a pivot, right, from where I was to where I am now.
Yeah, I get it 100%.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
Probably the best thing is on Facebook. I have 5,000 friends, so just follow along. We put out a lot of content for sure, but you can find me there. You can find links to everything I do from there for sure.
Cool. Yeah, we'll definitely put all this stuff up in the show notes.
Awesome.
Appreciate you coming in here today, sir.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Been a blast jamming out with you here,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I look forward to connecting with you further.
Absolutely.